what do all of these names have in common? Well, at some point in the past 4 years, they have been canceled. Cancel culture, which was originally known as call-out culture, has been a part of our lives for around 4 years. Cancel culture promotes the idea that those in the public eye should be blacklisted and boycotted if they do something wrong or offensive. It doesn't seem like a bad idea at first glance. Historically, people in the public eye, celebrities, politicians, authors, etc., have rarely been held accountable for their actions. Of course, there are people who are in or have been in the public eye that no one should support. No one should be supporting a celebrity who's been convicted of sexual assault, child abuse, or murder in the first degree. That we can pretty much all agree on, no matter where you land on the moral or political spectrum. While I can wholeheartedly agree that people ought to be held accountable for their actions and that those actions should have consequences, I do not believe that cancel culture is the way to go about it. I believe that cancel culture is both deeply destructive and extremely dangerous. I will provide evidence today to show you the harmful effects that this ideology has had and is still having on today's world. As someone who is just coming into adulthood as this movement was taking off, I have watched firsthand as it has destroyed livelihoods and put a harmful way of thinking into the minds of my generation. I have both researched this topic and have personally seen its harmful effects. There are 3 main reasons that I believe cancel culture is destructive and dangerous. Cancel culture is not effective. Cancel culture leads to a system in which people try to do away with anyone who might disagree with them. And finally, cancel culture promotes cyberbullying and incites violence. The first reason I stated is that cancel culture simply is not effective. The original purpose of cancel/call-out culture was to bring about change, but it was unsuccessful. According to an article published in October of 2019, published by the New York Times, former United States President Barack Obama spoke out about cancel culture during a panel discussion earlier that year. He stated that there is a sense sometimes of the way of me making change is to be as judgmental as possible about other people. Article authors Emily Rube and Derek Taylor also recorded the president as having said, "That's not activism. That's not bringing about change. If all you're doing is casting stones, you're probably not going to get that far." Obama's words were received well by both liberals and conservatives. The article lists conservative commentator Tomi Lahren, conservative pundit Ann Coulter, and former Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard as a few of the people supporting Obama's statements on the subject. In an article from Vox, an online news source with multiple awards for their online journalism, cultural reporter Asia Romano wrote that, quote, "Erin Rose, a corporate diversity and inclusion consultant, used to identify with the progressives who participate in call-out and cancel culture." The article goes on to say that cancel culture wasn't showing the results he was hoping for. In an email to Vox, Rose wrote, "Mainstream internet activism is a lot of calling out and blaming and shaming. We have to get honest with ourselves about whether calling out and canceling gives us more than a short-term release of cathartic anger." Romano referred to the action of canceling someone as, quote, "a short-term release of cathartic anger," and that leads me to my next point. Cancel culture leads to a system in which people try to destroy anyone who might disagree with them. Cancel culture leads to intolerance in democratic societies. In a CNN article titled "Cancel Culture is About Power, Who Has It and Who Wants to Be Heard," Brandon Tinsley quotes a speech given by former President Donald Trump. Quote, "One of the left's political weapons is cancel culture, driving people from their jobs, shaming dissenters, and demanding total submission from anyone who disagrees. This is the very definition of totalitarianism, and it is completely alien to our culture and our values, and it has absolutely no place in the United States of America. It is essential within a democracy, or in the case of the United States, a democratic republic, for all parties to be respected and promoted equally. Despite any differences the parties might have, cancel culture, however, has completely revoked this, and instead prefers the ideology that I am always right, and whoever dares to disagree with me must be taken down." Not only does cancel culture lead to intolerance, but it also promotes destruction. One of the things those involved with cancel culture are actively seeking to destroy is history. Of course, they aren't seeking to destroy all history, only the pieces that don't fit in with their agenda. They tear down statues, they demolish buildings, they ban books, and they change the school curriculums. They will attempt to justify this foolish and irrational behavior by saying that we shouldn't be proud of that part of our history, or they will argue that we have to right the wrongs of our past. To those arguments, I would say, of course. Of course we shouldn't be proud of slavery. Of course we shouldn't be proud of racism. Absolutely we should strive to make those wrongs right to the best of our ability. But recognizing our past mistakes and striving to make things right in the modern world does not mean we have to erase our past. If we stop teaching the truth about our past mistakes, we wipe away our nation's history simply because it might be offensive. We will eventually repeat those mistakes, and it will lead to absolute and total devastation. In an article titled, "Is There Any Stopping the March of Cancel Culture?" the Assistant Voices and Opinions Editor for the Discreet News, Christian Sagers, said, quote, "They have come for the opportunistic Columbus and the slave-owning founding fathers. They have come for Brigham Young, the epitome of my alma mater, and the leader of one of the largest religious migrations in the country's history. It is healthy to expose the thorny characters of history's pages, and there's a distinction for those who fought against their country and those who built it. But to ignore or eliminate wholesale their contributions to the nation's foundation is a slippery slope indeed." I don't want to make it seem as though this erasing of history is something new. Unfortunately, mankind has been attempting to cover their tracks since the dawn of time. There are examples all throughout history of battles that were lost and that weren't recorded by the losing army, but that were written down with celebration by the victors. Unfortunately, we've polished up our history books as well. In another quote from the aforementioned article, Sagers said, quote, "Of course, that's what Anglo-American hegemony has done to U.S. history for decades. Textbooks are riddled with holes where massacres, lynchings, and periods of minority empowerment should be. That's wrong. An incomplete history isn't really a history." He is absolutely correct. We shouldn't get rid of the information that informs us of America's less than triumphal moments. We should teach about minority history and empowerment. However, if we don't present all the facts and we only present the information that celebrates the minorities and diverse empowerment, then we are headed in a very dark direction. I've spoken about the fact that cancel culture is ineffective, and I've discussed the manner in which it seeks to destroy tolerance and history, which I hope has helped you to see this movement's hateful and destructive nature. Now I want to talk to you about the culture's effect on people. Cancel culture has begun to promote cyberbullying and incite violence. Cancel culture started as a joke, and then became a way to call public figures out on poor behavior, but it didn't take long for the movement to devolve into violence, anger, and hatred. If you were listening to the names I listed at the beginning of this speech, you might have heard a name or two that have been called out or canceled for legitimate reasons. However, most of the names on that list were canceled simply for having an opinion that wasn't politically correct. Many of the names I mentioned are avid supporters of the LGBTQ community, most are liberal supporters of social justice, and have been outspoken about their liberal beliefs. But each and every one of them has fallen victim to cancel culture. Probably the best known example was J.K. Rowling. The famous author of the beloved Harry Potter books was canceled for stating that she believed biology was what determined gender. Despite the fact that Rowling has always supported the LGBTQ community and never said anything negative or derogatory towards a transgender person, she was canceled and verbally degraded. Cancel culture has made it impossible for someone in the public eye to have their own opinions and to be who they really are. People are no longer able to speak freely, even in the presence of friends and family, for fear that somehow it will get out that they said something negative or something that doesn't line up with cancel culture's ideologies, and their careers will be destroyed. Even more unfortunately, with the rise of social media, cancel culture seems to have made its home there. Ever since social media became a part of our everyday lives, we have had to deal with cyberbullying. There have always been bullies, but technology has made it possible for them to hide behind their screens with their anonymous profiles. People can be cruel. That isn't a secret. Cancel culture has not only fed into, but has also taken advantage of that cruelty. In an article written by video news director Alex Miranda, it says, quote, "All too commonly, users feed off of the negativity presented in these online boycotts to create a hate train of mass cyberbullying targeted at one specific individual. Death threats are oftentimes among the list of obscene proclamations directed toward canceled individuals, which elevate and resent climate to an even more alarming state and can lead to real-life detriments. From this perspective, social media users' retaliation against those who are canceled is sometimes more offensive than the exposed behavior of the offender himself." Cancel culture no longer focuses only on major household names. It has trickled down to a smaller category of celebrities, content creators. With the rise of social media, many people have made a career out of making content for various social media platforms. These creators make videos about food, their careers, books, sports, comedy, gaming, art, music, and even just videos about their families. Many of these creators have built up large followings on apps like TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. However, the larger the following, the more critical eyes there are to watch. Cancel culture has grown so large, so aggressive, and so grotesque that content creators have received hateful comments, disturbing direct messages, and death threats. There are many commenters that go to the extreme. Some examples of extreme comments stemming from the destructive nature of cancel culture have included death threats against children, threats to send a creator an aborted fetus, graphic descriptions of how they would kill a creator's child, and threats to burn down a creator's home. As you can see, cancel culture has become extremely destructive and terribly dangerous. I have shown that cancel culture is not effective as a method of bringing about change. I have shown that it promotes intolerance and destruction of history, and to wrap things up, I discuss the silencing nature of cancel culture and the violent and dangerous mindset that has come from it. Our world isn't perfect. Our government isn't perfect. People are not perfect. You are not perfect. No matter what you believe or who you are, no one is going to agree with you fully every time. I think, no matter where you fall, Democrat, Republican, atheist or Christian, Jew or Muslim, it's time for us to learn to respect and build one another up, celebrating our differences, acknowledging our mistakes, and to build a future where a disagreement isn't a career-ending, life-altering, ruinous mistake.